Hey Bay Youth, welcome to the So Good Podcast.
So good!
Hey Bay Youth, welcome to the So Good Podcast,
Welcome,
episode 3. We
Three.
have a special guest here with us today. We have the one, the only Mr. Pastor Apollo
That's
Solse.
what they call me.
Give it up.
Yay.
Yay.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm a big fan of the podcast. And as a fan to come on the show, I feel like I'm sitting with celebrities. So thank you.
You are the celebrity.
You are literally.
Just trying to be like you guys.
Indeed. Also, if we didn't mention, my name's Nathan.
I'm Mar.
Oh, hey, Mar. And we're so excited to be filming with you guys today. So, here on the Bay Youth So Good Podcast, we have a special tradition that we like to do. And we have a bev of the day
I like it.
Yep.
every podcast episode. So, Apollo, do you want to start us off with
I
what
would
your
love
bev
to.
of the day is?
So I'm a pretty boring beverage drinker. I typically just drink water. But when I do like to splurge a little bit,
Splurge.
I get one of these bad boys. It's a
Yeah.
Gatorade zero calorie white glacier cherry. And this is the only acceptable flavor to
The
drink. The only one.
I think like the blue cherry one is pretty good.
That's a good thought, but you're wrong. But it's definitely
okay.
glacier
Does it
cherry.
always have to be like zero sugar, zero calories?
I don't like a lot of sugar in my drinks. If you give me a juice, I will put half my cup full of water.
To like
Oh.
dilute it a little bit.
Yeah, to dilute it. So, but the thing, they're lying. This says Gatorade Zero, but it actually has 10 calories. So
10.
Whoa.
Don't
Wait,
believe-
does it say zero?
it says 0 calories if you only drink one serving, but if you drink 2.5 servings, it's 10. So 0 times
Wait,
2.5
how does that make
is
sense?
apparently
That
10.
doesn't make sense.
I don't know, but I still drink it.
I am not a man in STEM. However,
interesting.
That does not make sense.
The math ain't mathin', but it's
It's
delicious.
not- yeah.
It does not. Mar, what about you?
Today I have a good old Dr. Pepper. Yeah. Nothing to say about it. It's just a good,
DP.
pretty crisp.
A
How
good
many
old
how many
DP.
flavors are in DP? 23.
23.
23.
23 and me.
Indeed.
There you go.
Bless up. My bev of the day is the one, the only yerba mate in the Rebel Berry flavor.
Ooh,
This is
Pretty
the best
popular.
I
one.
like it. I used to think it was called Yerba Mate. I was
no,
wrong.
same. It's
Oh.
same.
I was wrong.
Okay. I only know it because Aisha says it correctly. And then I also work at Phil's, so then we have yerba mate at Phil's.
I like it.
Actually recently discontinued and I'm still upset about it.
That's
And
Yerba
that's all,
mate is
so.
discontinued.
At Phil's.
good bev of
Oh,
the day.
I
like
know,
it.
guys. I'm really upset.
Okay, that's upsetting.
Indeed. So that's the bev of the day.
That is the bev of the day.
Indeed. Mar, what's next on the podcast? Let's tell
So
us.
something else that we like to do in this podcast is we like to go around and say our so goods of the week.
I like it.
So Nathan, why don't you start us off?
I would love to start us off. My so good of the week is as we sat down to record this episode, I learned that Apollo sounds really cool beatboxing into the mic. So
is not
Apollo, can you please demonstrate my so good of the week?
I wasn't ready for this. I thought it might have happened, but I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm smiling so big it's hard to get out
Okay.
of beatbox, but let me try something very simple like
Maybe don't look at him.
don't look at me, don't look at me.
We'll
I'm
look
so
away.
ashamed. Something really simple.
So good.
So good.
So good.
Okay, my so good of the week is that this week I was really excited to buy some ribbon to make bows,
Ooh.
and I
You
finally
love a
got
bow
it.
queen.
Yeah, I've been putting ribbons on everything. It's crazy, but I finally got the ribbon that I wanted, and it was the last one too, so I felt very lucky. But yeah, that's my so good.
Oh, I love that. That's so
That's
fun.
so good.
That's so
Good.
so good.
I like
was
it.
thinking of a word. I couldn't think
But
of the
good
word.
was there. Good was
Good
there.
was there.
My so good of the week. So I've been talking about my son Ezra. He's our youngest boy.
Shout out.
Shout out Ezra, Ezzy Poo. And
Ezzy-poo.
that's the first time I've ever said that.
Okay. Maybe don't.
And
say that.
I always talk about how I think he has a bigger appetite than his older brothers. His older brothers are 6 years old now,
Mhm.
and I wanted to test my theory. And so I took Ezra to Burger King, you guys, and I got him an Impossible Whopper, not the junior one, but like the full size Impossible
Did he
Whopper.
finish it?
He ate the whole thing.
Oh,
You're actually
He's
kidding me.
1 year old, and he ate a whole, like a year and a half, and he ate a whole Whopper by himself.
That's actually. Oh, that is.
Becca can't even finish a Whopper by herself, but my 1 year old did.
That's actually crazy.
That's my so good of the week.
That is so good.
So
that's
good.
crazy.
Bless up.
All the way.
Cool. So that's our intro to the podcast. We're gonna get started into like the chunk of what we will be talking about today in the podcast, and we're talking about transitions and transitioning into a new role, new chapter of life, and it's fitting because it's the new year.
It is.
Happy 2024, guys.
Happy
Happy
2024.
2024.
Apollo, before we begin though, I would love to know, who is Apollo Solse? Tell me about yourself. How'd you grow up? Where'd you grow up? How'd you get here to the Bay?
For sure.
All of the things. Give me the whole synopsis.
Yeah, that's a lot of questions, but let me see if I could.
Apollo Solse.
Let me see if I can put it in a nutshell. I don't want to take up
Condensed.
too much time just talking about my story. But yeah, my name is Apollo. For those that have heard my story enough times, you know I was born at a young age. Some of you got that. Some of you will get it later. I was born at a young age, and if you couldn't tell by my hat, I'm Filipino, because I know you probably can't tell by my face because I'm light-skinned and I don't look Filipino, but I am. Actually, also, just found out recently, my whole life I told people I'm Filipino, Spanish, and German.
Okay.
And I thought I was like 15% German. Recently, came across a DNA test, found out I am 0% German, and I'm actually Chinese. I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
That's crazy.
yeah, like almost 15% Chinese.
And you had no idea?
I had no idea my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, so this year I'm going hard on Lunar New Year. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna
Yeah.
be a good time.
So
but yeah, I
good.
just found out I'm Chinese, so that's really cool. So that's a little bit about me, nationality or ethnicity wise, at least. I'm Filipino, Spanish, and Chinese. And a little bit about my story. I actually didn't grow up in the church. I was born and raised like in the Catholic Church, but I didn't really believe like what I participated in. And I kind of spent my whole life running away from like anything that had to do with religion. For those that are familiar with my story, you know that like my father passed away when I was 5. And that kind of led me down this kind of path of running away from religion, running away from God. I blamed God for a lot of kind of the stuff that happened in my life. And I just kept running and running and running until eventually I couldn't stop running anymore. I had this like really amazing encounter with God my senior year of high school. Shout out to all the seniors out there. And that kind of kickstarted my faith journey. And I could go into all the little nuances and intricacies of my story, but I definitely want to hop into some scripture today. But that's just a little bit about kind of, at least timeline wise, senior year, I really started taking my faith seriously, started exploring it on my own and not just what someone told me. And I fell in love. I started going to youth group. When I say I fell in love, I don't just mean with the girl I met at youth group, who is now my wife. Shout out to I can say this on the podcast. Will this get bleeped out?
No.
My smoking hot wife, Becca. And yeah, we're married. We've been married now for over a decade. And it's been over a decade. Been together for about 15 years now. So we have a big family, and I love every moment of it. And ministry has been really special for me. I've been doing youth ministry. I just realized when I was preparing like one of my messages that I spoke in December, my last message as a youth pastor actually, discovered I am 34 years old, for those that were guessing. And I have been doing youth ministry for 17 years. So half my life I've been doing youth ministry.
That's
Mar
actually
is
crazy.
17 years old. I've been doing youth ministry for about as long as Mar's been alive.
That's crazy.
Mars' entire existence
My entire
has
existence.
been Apollo
Yep.
and youth.
Yeah. Hobbies. I enjoy lots of things. I enjoy playing basketball, fantasy football. I like reading. I have a different book in my hand every couple of weeks. And I don't know, man. I'm not sure what else you want to know about me.
That's great.
I play instruments. I play guitar.
Instruments?
I used to be a worship leader. Before I was a youth pastor, I was a worship leader.
Really?
Yeah.
He was everything before his youth pastor, I
I
swear.
used to raise fish. I used to build bikes. Yeah.
It's crazy.
So all the side
I just
hustles.
recently
It's actually
started
really cool,
selling cards. That's like my new thing.
You
Selling cards?
Yeah.
elaborate.
I just sell cards now, guys. Like collecting cards. I buy and sell. Multiple, like whether it's Pokemon you want, I got it.
That's
There's
interesting.
a new
Wow.
one called like from Disney. I just started selling. It's been pretty good.
Disney has cards. This
Yeah.
is like new to me.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
hmm
What's up?
Cool.
So that's Mr. Pastor
Yeah, it's me and
Apollo Solse.
uh
What a phenomenal story.
yeah.
It's so good.
So good.
So good.
So good.
So good. Also, did you guys know that
Yeah.
Becca coined that phrase? She's the one that started that.
Did she? No,
Shout
okay.
out Becca.
I would love to get into this. What is like the backstory of this?
Y'all
of So
don't know
Good?
this.
No.
This podcast is called So Good, and
Yeah.
you guys don't even know where it came
Well,
from.
in
No.
my life, I know Becca started that because in the SMC back in the day, shout out the SMC, I would just hear Becca in the back.
That
So
was her.
good.
Yeah, so
Is that how it started?
So one day I was speaking a sermon. It was like an early morning. This is back when we had Sunday morning youth services.
Like
And
5 years
it was the
ago.
early
Yeah.
morning, the earliest one.
Okay.
And I asked everyone, "How are you doing?" And no one responded. And then so Becca in the back, she said, "So good." And then that became a thing.
Is that how it started?
It started with Becca because no one
Yo.
Thank you,
responded.
Becca.
No one responded. And then Becca says, everyone's quiet. Let me get loud. And so she said, "So good." And it stuck and it never went away.
Wait, I love that so much because like Becca is like the most like she can like shout out and like in
Yeah.
the back and like the audience, she's like the most supportive.
Yeah.
Because like, or I remember she started, at least in my life, is like when someone would say something up on stage, she's like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you did.
Yeah, you did.
And I love everything about that. And I
Yeah.
have like brought that into my own vocabulary.
Yeah.
But so good. Sorry
So
for
good.
Becca's whole
Sorry
say.
from Becca.
Wow.
Because
Shout
no
out
one-
Becca.
We wouldn't be here.
Yeah,
if
we wouldn't
it
be
wasn't
here
for
if
Becca.
the early morning service would have responded. So good would not have been a thing.
We wouldn't have.
That's actually
And
crazy.
then we canceled that service. So there you
R.I.P. But
R.I.P. R.I.P.
RIP.
you know,
So, as we may know, that a couple weeks ago, you preached about how Joshua was filling in the roles that Moses was filled.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to ask you, how can you relate to Moses as you're transitioning out of this position?
Yeah, no, for sure. This is like something that's like been really special for me. This is the story of Moses and Joshua's transition. I've been doing youth ministry, like I said, for 17 years, but about 7 of them have been here. And I remember God gave me multiple promises in my life. Like when it came to youth ministry, when I first got here, there was a few things that we weren't doing as a youth ministry. And when I hear Moses' story, God gave him like several promises. Hey, this is what you're gonna see past. Like I'm gonna like your people are gonna go into the promised land. And I feel like God gave me several promises when I first became a youth pastor here. I remember one of them. I shared this in my message too. One of them was, hey, when I first got here, I was the youngest staff member, and my heart was to see other young people who would be in ministry, full time or part time in ministry as a career. Serving God and serving the local church. That was one of the promises I felt like I had as the youngest staff member. And if you look today, our staff is full of so many young people.
the most.
So many of them have actually came out of our youth ministry,
Yeah.
who were at one point our middle schoolers and who are now serving in large capacities, whether they're interning, whether they're on staff as an administrative role, people who are directors and pastors and leaders. And I got to see that come to pass, and that's beautiful for me. And Moses got to see some of these promises. And then another promise that I felt like I had was I wanted to see students serving in large capacities around the church. Because when I first got here, there was just youth ministry, and it was almost like youth ministry was like the kids' table, where we kind of did our own thing, but we never really participated in big church.
Yeah.
And one of my biggest hearts for ministry is intergenerational ministry, where there's multiple ages serving alongside each other. And so one of our hearts was to do this thing we would call our youth takeovers, where our students would be in the main, and our students would be like leading worship, and our students would be like on cameras and production. And that was the dream and like this vision that we had years ago. And we finally did our first youth takeover, and it was awesome. So many kids were serving. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But then what happened over the years is that dream of having this event turned into, if you come at the Bay Church any given Sunday, every single week, you're going to see students on worship. You're
Yeah.
going to see students on production. You're going to see students who are greeting out front. You're going to see students who are even leading ministries. Like in children's ministry,
Yeah.
like our biggest base of leaders are students. And it's been phenomenal to see that promise come to pass as well. But Moses didn't get to see all the promises that God had given. Moses himself went to the edge of the promised land. He could see it in the distance,
Yeah.
but he didn't get to walk into them. One of the visions and dreams that I had was for this big communal event where multiple schools, public schools, private schools in the area, and multiple churches would come together for this kind of these youth gatherings where these schools would kind of compete with each other, but also have community with each other. And I never got to see that pass in my time here. And I remember years ago having a conversation with 3 students who are now adults, just saying, I feel like this tug in my heart that I will probably never get to see that promise. But I'm okay with that because I feel like our future students will. And that's a promise that for me as youth pastor, I've never got to see. But what I'm seeing now is the groundwork of students launching and doing things on campuses. I see like the beautiful things that are happening at Clayton Valley right now, of clubs being launched and students doing ministry outside of church.
Yeah.
And for me, although it's something I would have wished so deeply and desperately to see and be a part of, I am so grateful that there's other people who are going to pick up the mantle and do things I couldn't even do. So I love seeing like what our students are doing, what our adult leaders are doing. And I'm just excited, like Moses, even though I won't get to walk into some of these promises, I'm grateful that some of our people will, and that they will lead the charge. And what I love to see is that every generation will take this thing a step further.
Yeah.
They'll go a step further. And I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud of the students who've already started to do that.
That's good.
Yeah. No, because you mentioned like how the mantle is like kind of being passed. Like you mentioned like generations to generations about how like this generation will pass on to the next generation and so on and so on. That's kind of like what it talks about in like Deuteronomy 31. It's like Moses is officially like passing the mantle onto Joshua into leading God's people of Israel.
Mhm.
So like throughout this process of transitioning out of youth and into a new role as a campus pastor, how have you seen the mantle being passed to you, but then also while you also passing the mantle onto others? Like how are you like maneuvering like that process?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, I always want to be honest and real, and
Yeah.
any space I've gotten to, any place I've gotten, I know I didn't get there by myself. One of my old pastors back in San Jose, he used to always say, if you see a turtle on a fence post, it's a really weird quote, but if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know he didn't get there by himself. Like the only way a turtle can get on a fence post is if someone puts him there.
Right.
And so for me in ministry, I'm only where I'm at because someone's helped get me here. Nothing I've done, I've accomplished on my own, whether it's because of God's blessing or it's because people have advocated for me and pushed for me and give me opportunities and spaces. When I first came on staff at a church, I had no educational background. I had no experience. I was just hungry and passionate, and I wanted to learn and I wanted to grow. And someone took a chance on me. My youth pastor took a chance on me. And people continued to kind of push for me, advocate for me, and also challenge me. And I think I grew a lot in that process of understanding, hey, I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm so grateful that I am. I'm not gifted or talented or equipped or educated enough to be here, but I'm so grateful that I am. And my biggest heart is to continue carrying on that process. Because one of the things we see is Moses does a really good job at this. He really prepares people for kind of what's next. And what I didn't talk about in my message was actually Joshua does a really poor job at this. But Moses, what he does is he constantly gives people space and opportunity. That's how we see Joshua step into the role that he's in. And one of my favorite moments, I talked about this in my message, was that there are sometimes when you read scripture, there's really what seems like insignificant parts, but they're so big. For example, there's a small verse in scripture that says that Joshua was born in Egypt. That seems insignificant, but what that tells me is that Joshua was there when Moses parted the Red Sea. Like, that's huge. It seems insignificant, but it's so huge. There's other moments where it says that that Moses was going up to spend time with God in the presence of God and get the 10 Commandments. And it says that his young aide, Joshua, went with him. So again, we see Joshua was there. There's a moment where Moses was face to face with God at the meeting of the tents where he would be in the presence of God. And it says that when Moses left the tent and left the presence of God, it says that in Joshua remained. And so every step of the way, Moses brought Joshua with him. And while Joshua wasn't even leading in those spaces, he was present in those spaces and he was learning in those spaces. And someone did that for me. And so my biggest heart is to do that for other people. I am not a leader who micromanages my people, but I will equip them, I'll empower them, and I'll give them space to fail. And I'll give them space to learn. And one of the things we've seen is so many of our young leaders now stepping into these leadership roles and say, hey, you might not be ready yet, but we're going to get you there. And you might not know how to do this, but come alongside me, watch as I do it. Watch as I'm chasing after Jesus. My hope is that you would be alongside me for the process, and that even when I leave, just like Joshua, you would remain. Even when I step out of this role of being a youth pastor, my hope in my heart is that the Mars would remain. My hope is that our middle schoolers would remain. My hope is that our students would continue growing and learning even in my departure, because it has never been about me. It's been about trusting God and bringing people in for the ride and just trusting him in the process.
Yeah. No, that's really good. Because like, I feel like that's what I really respect about you, is that you don't just like walk that, or you don't just like talk about that and like be like, oh, I do this XYZ, but like you really do walk that. Because I even know, like in my time of like helping run socials and stuff like that, I was 16 years old and they're like, hey, cool, Nathan, here you go. Here's like the login, here's like whatever. And like you like let me like run with it and like let me grow my abilities to like learn how to become a leader and like how to like fail when like I need to fail, but also like you support me. Like you didn't just like leave, you didn't just like whatever, like you were there with me. Kind of like what like it's, I don't know, that's just so interesting. I don't know, that's like tying it into the story of like Joshua and like Moses or whatever, and like how it seemed like those were insignificant moments of like, it just like mentioned that Joshua was in Egypt, but like how he was there for like monumental moments of like Moses's like ministry and like his just like life, you know?
Absolutely. And Joshua failed along the process, but Moses still kept him close, you know?
Right.
And like, even like to your point, like, like we trusted you with social media at 16 years old, and it wasn't perfect, right? Like it was not. It was rocky. But we still, we continue to trust you and give you that space. And I think that's what every good leader should do is trust your people and give them space to fail, because that's where we grow and we learn the most. I don't learn when I'm like just succeeding and killing all the time. My biggest moments of growth or when I'm failing, when I'm struggling. But I have someone alongside me who's coaching me through the process.
So along with talking about passing the mantle, I know that you said that you've been a youth pastor for how long did you say?
As long as you've been alive.
As long as I've been.
Or
17.
I've been doing youth ministry for as long as you've been alive, but youth pastor for about the past 12 years or so, 14 years.
So this like something that you've gotten comfortable with. What are some of like the negative and positive aspects of leaving this role as being a youth pastor for this long?
Oh man, that's such a good question, and it's also like heart pulling for me. You know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I've been talking about in this process for me, transitioning out of my role, is I'm in like a place of excitement because of what's next for me and my family, as we're getting ready to kind of become campus pastors. But I'm also going through a mourning process. Like I'm grieving the loss of youth ministry because it's been such a big part of my life. And I don't think that youth ministry, I'll ever be done with youth ministry. I still want to be involved. Like when we launch it at the Pleasanton campus, I still want to help and support Mel and what she's doing. And I'll still be present and available. But I do have to grieve the loss of saying goodbye to youth ministry. You know, it's been such a big part of my life and I've grown so much in it. I feel like I was raised in youth ministry and as a leader. So much of my young formative years as a leader happened in youth ministry. And so I say that's the saddest part, and the hardest part is not being there on the week to weeks. You know, like I love small groups. I love the conversations we have. I love the laughs that we laugh, and I love the tears that we shed.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I won't have that when I'm a campus pastor, but there's something about the youthfulness and the energy that's in the room that I'll definitely miss. I'll miss going to the football games and the recitals, and I'll still go to those occasionally, just not as much as I used to.
Yeah.
And I'm saying goodbye, and it's sad and it hurts, but I'm also excited for the future as well. So it's bittersweet for sure.
Yeah.
As like we're talking, I feel like we can boil this like whole conversation of like what it looks like to be like a vessel for God and like listening to where he wants you to go. Cause like several times you mentioned this is not about me. Like this is not my ministry. Like it's his ministry. So like how would you encourage like our viewers, anyone listening, anyone watching, to like kind of have this mentality to like channel their inner like Joshua when it comes to like personal like transitions happening in like their lives and like becoming ready for a transition like that? Because like this is a huge transition for you.
Yeah.
This is a significant part that you are transitioning out of, and like you're transitioning into like uncharted territory. So like how do you like maneuver of like God is calling me to this, or like how do I like go about that?
Yeah. First, I want to speak to a couple different people.
Yeah.
Because in transitioning, as Moses transitioned, Joshua had to step into certain roles. So as I transition out, that means that there's also going to be people transitioning in, whether it's my role or other roles that need to be filled. And so to the people who are staff, who are youth staff, to you, I would say, don't get caught up in trying to do anything the way I did it. Like God created me uniquely to be me and to lead like Apollo leads. Don't lead like I led. There's hopefully I've given a little bit of nuggets and some things that have been helpful in their leadership journey. But God has created you uniquely to be you. So don't ever compare yourself to me. Don't ever compare your era of youth ministry to my era of youth ministry. God has called you to be uniquely you, and he's created you with your purpose. God didn't call Joshua to be Moses. He called Joshua to be Joshua. God didn't call Brandon to be Apollo. He called you to be Brandon. So whoever's transitioning into roles, like be who God's created you to be and operate in those strengths. Don't try to, Apollo did this. Don't ever do that. So ask yourself, what is God asking me to do in this place of leadership? To our younger leaders who are, whether you are young adults or you are students, I want you to, one of the things that is a theme all throughout the book of Joshua is this idea of not being afraid. Joshua says, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will go with you wherever you go. And so Joshua, who was in the middle of like enemy territory, and he wasn't afraid because he knew that God was going to be with him. In the middle of transitions and things that you aren't sure what the other side looks like. Maybe you feel like you're walking into God's promises, but it might seem terrifying. Know that you're not alone in the process. Whether there's other leaders around you or God himself is walking with you. Moses wasn't equipped, but God made him ready. Joshua and Moses both weren't good enough at the time, but God prepared them. And so for you, like I feel like God is preparing you for something. Walk in that. Don't walk away from it. Just like I spoke to the staff, God has called you to be uniquely you, and your version of a leader is different than mine. So make sure you're chasing after him, but make sure that he's coming along the ride with you, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Don't do it by yourself. Make sure that God's in the middle of it. Don't try to go based off your own talents, abilities, skills. Like, make sure you're pausing along the way and saying, God, thank you for what you've given me. I need you to lead me to what's next.
As we're starting to close out, is there any closing statements that you guys like to add for our viewers?
Man, so many. So many. I don't think I have enough time for all the statements I want to make. No, but the last statement I will have, I guess, is thank you to my Bay Youth family. It has been a whirlwind of a journey. Whether you have been a student of mine, an adult leader of mine, or you've just come along for the ride, and maybe we just met recently. Thank you for trusting me. I know that that's a hard thing to do. We live in a culture and in a time where it's hard sometimes for people to trust because they've been hurt before, because they've seen a lack of authenticity. And my hope that through my ministry, I've been able to be as authentic as I possibly can with all the good and bad. My hope is that you've seen some of the great things that have happened in our ministry. My hope is you've also seen my failures and you learn from them and that you've grown because of them, because I know I have. But thank you for trusting me. Thank you for trusting me in the good and the bad. Thank you for trusting me in the middle of my own insecurities. Thank you for trusting me even when I felt like I was failing. Thank you. I've loved being your youth pastor. I have loved leading you and leading alongside you. And so from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything. It's been a beautiful journey, and I'll never forget this season and era of my life.
No, but on just like behalf of like someone who has been your student, but like now kind of like just like serves alongside you and stuff like that. Like I really just want to say thank you as well for like the years of investment that you've poured, not only into me and my life. Like my life has drastically changed, like because you are in it and like you've poured into me, but also I know there are countless other students, former students, current students that could say the same, that like you have impacted your life in like such a positive way because you are always one to show up. Like you can, like people can talk about like, oh, like, what was the saying? Ray says it all the time. You can
pretend to care, but you can't pretend to show up.
That part. But you stay consistently just showing up in like everyone's lives. So really just thank you for the years of like dedication that you've put into the Bay Youth. And yeah, we're excited for you. I'm very excited for you.
So
on a
excited.
personal level, on like a serving alongside you level, I'm very excited to see you grow in your ability of just being a pastor, not only for youth anymore, but also just for like the whole congregation. So I'm really excited to see that. But I'm also really like gonna miss you because like the way that like the youth, like it won't be the same. Like you were talking about that, like how like you're encouraging like the staff to not lead like you led, but like, or like not lead because I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But no, I really, again, I just want to say thank you so much, Apollo. So say the way
Thank
that
you
you're
so
the
much.
best.
We're
Thank
gonna miss you. I would just like to say, any room that you walk in, I always feel like so comfortable, or I feel like I've known you for so long because you just always make everyone feel at home.
Mm.
That's
I've
what
been
they
here. I've
want.
been home the whole time. So
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Man, what a podcast.
What a podcast.
So
that
good.
was episode 3 of the podcast.
Thank you guys.
Indeed. Thank you, Apollo. So say
Been real.
Thank you for being here.
it's been
Of
real. Before we leave, we do have a couple of announcements
Yeah,
for
we
you.
do. What are they?
Mar,
Give
tell
it
us
to
what
us.
our first announcement is.
So our first announcement is that we have these podcasts every first Saturday of
Every
the
first
month.
Saturday.
Mhm.
So make sure you put that on your calendar to watch.
So good Saturdays.
So good
Saturdays.
Dude, last time
Um,
Destiny killed the last one. That was phenomenal.
Destiny is so good.
Yeah.
The way she's
I feel
also
so
the best.
inadequate. Like when I listened to her, I was like, "Ooh, I don't know if I could do it justice." But thank you, Destiny, for
Shout out
paving the way.
Destiny for real. And so we have our So Good podcast, but then also you can see us in person every
Ooh.
single week.
every week.
We will be here at the Concord campus on Tuesdays at 6:30, over at the Brentwood campus on Wednesdays at 6:30, and also you can serve with us on Sundays.
Ooh.
So you can see us 3 times a week, if not more.
There
so
you go.
make sure you guys come visit us at the Bay Youth and
Bring a friend.
bring a friend.
Don't come by yourself. Bring a friend.
Don't come by yourself. We're your family, but also bring your friends.
Bring a friend.
Indeed. But before we close out the podcast, indeed, Apollo mentioned this earlier because we were talking about beatboxing and all the things that we have a person behind the camera.
Behind the
His name is
camera.
Cody, and
Cody!
he also can beatbox. So hey Cody, do you want to come here?
Cody.
Come. Oh, but you can, Cody. Here you go.
Yay!
He said
I would
no
like
as
to-
he's taking off his headphones. Don't
I
make me
would
do
love
it.
to also
Let me come
give it
up.
up for Cody. He does all of our audio and he's
Cody.
doing all the video.
His
So
new
shout out.
nickname is Bro Code.
Bro Code.
Bro
So
Code.
do you want to please beatbox for us, please? Thank you.
Okay, but
Give us your best
but
one.
Me and Apollo got a
Oh, beatboxing
got a
challenge.
Turn yourself around.
Hold up. I
Can the
can't-
camera even see you? This is Cody, guys.
All right. Hold up.
Ooh.
You're gonna have to edit this.
Ooh.
No,
Oh.
All right, ready?
Ready.
Go for
Ready?
it.
Ooh.
Ooh. So good. Ooh. Get it. No, I didn't agree to that. Good job, Cody. So good. I like it.
Oh, hello. So we'll see you in February.
Yeah, we will.
See you until then.
Peace out.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.